Morning,
Good to see you. You're sipping your coffee well? Yeah, I've got different varieties, including also from Kiprono Kitoni's farm as well. Good. So we've heard about what is happening as far as the cost of labor is in the country from the director there of World Bank, who spoke to Julian Omboko, who is our business editor here. But from your own assessment as it is right now, I know you're in that sector, how is the pinch as far as the cost of labor is doing? And are we seeing businesses falling because the cost of labor is too high in the country? Let's just begin with Dr. Collins Odote.
Dibal, I am not sure that the bigger problem the economy is having is the cost of labor.
Yes.
I don't actually think that is the bigger problem. We have a problem as a country in terms of our economic situation.
Yes.
But I think to overplay one over the other is to miss the point. I actually don't agree with the director in her assessment that the bigger issue is the cost of labor. I think we have huge issues in terms of the cost of production, contributed to by many things. Contributed to power, contributed to, yes, by a little bit of labor, but not that labor is the biggest problem. That's my assessment.
Labor is not the biggest problem. What is your pick, Kiprono Kitoni?
Thank you very much, Debal. Again, like Collins, I think we need to take this conversation in context, and I think we need to look at it in terms of our country's competitiveness. And to say, especially as we begin this year, you know, one of the biggest things that I note about Kenyans is that we are very good at lamentation. And I think we really need to start to focus on solutions rather than problems. And we really need to look at our country's competitiveness. I mean, one of the facts that we have on the table, for example, is, you know, if we look at our trading relationship with Uganda, in the year 2000, Kenya had a 10-to-1 trading advantage over Uganda. Today, the balance of trade is in favor of Uganda. So where has our competitiveness gone? And again, the cost of labor is a component in that competitiveness equation. So I think we need to have, you know, hard discussion. We need to have a realistic discussion. We need to focus at the problems, and we need to look at the competence of our country, competitiveness of our country.
Okay. Yeah. Let's hear from Dr. Otichilo.
Thank you. First, I want also to agree with my colleagues that the problem is bigger than just labor. We have to look at this problem in a holistic manner because the factors that affect economic productions are many, and we have to tease them out and see which have the significant impact. And I want to agree with my colleagues that our cost of production generally is extremely high, and that will definitely affect the way we produce our products and the cost of those products in the market and so on. So it's a more complicated matter, and we want to look at the whole issue in a holistic manner.
Manner. Looking at the whole wheel, you think the cost of production, we have the element of the labor, you know, the element of power as well, but compared to power, that particular statement by, of course, the CEO or the director of World Bank is not really flying for you. What do you think, Dr. Andre Tumori?
Thank you, Dibal. You see, my colleagues are quite right. You know, power, credit, cost of logistics, and cost of labor. So if you were to say which one is weighing the most, I think you'd have to single out power. Yes, power. As being, you know, one area where we are quite uncompetitive. And credit, yeah, so if you're competing, say, with somebody in a different economy and they can finance production, finance a factory at 6 or 7%, and you are at 12, 14, 15%, then obviously it's going to impact. I think having said that, I would single out health as an area where the cost of labor, even relative to other sectors within the economy, is a bit out of whack. I think if you look at the public sector, the average health worker will earn 2 to 3 times what the workers in the other, perhaps equivalent sectors or equivalent disciplines within the public sector. So, for instance, entry for graduate doctor into the public sector
Yes.
is somewhere in the neighborhood of 240, 250,000 per month, compared to other disciplines which will enter the labor force at say 70, 80,000 shillings per month. So there is something there. And when you look at the effort by both levels of government to do UHC, then the cost is really a bit disproportionate. But I quite agree with my colleagues that a generalization that labor is the sort of main driver of uncompetitiveness, I disagree. I think it is power, it is cost of logistics, it's cost of credit, and so on.
Yeah, so there are many elements rolled into one as it is right now. Let's hear from Habil Olaka.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't differ very much from my colleagues. I think we mentioned about the competitiveness of the economy, and if I look at it from the banking sector, some 2-3 years ago, there was almost like a shift in terms of what we call the shared services centers. A number of banks that were having their shared services centers within the local jurisdiction were actually considering moving elsewhere. And part of it was just because of the competitiveness. And therefore, and in that mix, labor was not the main component, although it was a factor. Yes. But labor was not the main component. There were things like, for example, the cost of power, the administrative overhead generally just run the shared services center. And so I'll agree with my colleagues the fact that labor is a factor, but it's not the main driver. And so we shouldn't overemphasize it. If I look at the banking sector over the last 2-3 years, I think our cost of providing a service is determined by a cost of the cost general to the banking sector, and labor is a major contributor. But I don't think it has been a major driver in terms of the cost of banking services to the consumer, other than other factors like, for example, the credit risk. Other factors like, for example, the administrative overhead that banks have got to bear in order to provide the service. And therefore, I think in summary, I'll agree with my colleagues on the fact that yes, labor is important, but it's not the most critical factor.
All right, maybe yes, Collins, I can see you're staring at the issue.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something on based on what Governor said, because for me that's the aspect of labor that is problematic. I think the two things that in labor that is problematic is, one, if somebody was talking about disparities in pay structures in government and what SRC was supposed to do to harmonize, that would be something that you would be able to debate. The second, if somebody was talking about sometimes the labor unrests in the country and what that then means in terms of stability for employment, that is something you would be talking about, but not its cost. I think those two are problems in the labor sector, but it's not a cost issue. So I think talking about the cost issue completely misses the point, especially if you also add on to the fact that this country is known for having one of the most skilled labor forces across the region. Yes. So you can't be talking about some negativity that doesn't exist without recognizing, I think, the obtaining situation on the ground.